There are things about each of the lands that excite me, but if you hold the gun to my head, I gotta say Dark Universe, because I'm a Monsters fan from childhood, and I've always dreamed about Universal having a year-round spooky park, or at least a land, and everything that I've seen about Dark Universe gets me really excited.
That is Seth Kubersky, and you're listening to the Tomorrow Society podcast. Hey there, thanks for joining me here on episode 248 of the Tomorrow Society podcast. I'm your host, Dan Heaton, as we roll towards the grand finale in episode 250. Thrilled to once again be talking with Seth Kubersky, who started out appearing in episode 5, which I will talk about on the show, and is back for his 4th appearance here. And I feel like the timing is perfect. We have Epic Universe opening next May. They just released the unofficial guide to Universal Orlando 2025, Seth Kubersky, and now co-author Alicia Stella. And that book includes a lot of information about Epic Universe. So while I've talked about the park in the past, I haven't gone land by land through it like Seth and I do. And he seems like the perfect person as an expert who's been going to Universal forever and knows the Orlando market and can really dive into, one, all the cool attractions that are going to be at Epic Universe, and two, what's the potential for the market? Are there some possible challenges? How cool could it be? And then near the end, we talk about some fun rapid fire questions, including Seth's thoughts on some recent Disney announcements, including the sad closure of Muppet Vision that is going to happen sometime in the upcoming year. So let's get right to it. One more time, here is Seth Kubersky. So Seth, can you believe, do you know your first appearance on the show was episode 5, which was October 27th, 2015. Can you believe that?
It's crazy that it's been nearly a decade. Wow.
Feels like 2 decades, though.
You can see my hair has gone gray since. Wow. Yeah, I'm very honored to be one of your first guests, and now I guess one of your last guests. I feel like it's come full circle.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I looked back. I didn't listen to it because, it might be painful for how it was.
I can't listen to my old recordings. I can't listen to my new recordings. I can't listen to my own voice.
It's funny because we were talking then about Universal and like how that was post Potter, but then it was right after Diagon Alley. So it was like all the things
that would have been right
doing,
around when the first edition of the Unofficial Guide to Universal Orlando came out. Diagon Alley was new. We were looking forward to the future. Epic was not even on the radar yet. It was a whole different world.
Yeah, but it's funny. I bet you some of the things about growth and stuff are very similar. But yes, obviously, Today I want to talk for sure a good amount about Epic Universe, which this fits along with the release of your unofficial guide to Universal Orlando 2025 edition, which has a lot of info about Epic Universe. So just up front, we're about 6 months out, Seth, from Epic Universe opening. And I'm curious, how are you feeling right now now that you've done this deep dive with you and Alicia and everyone with the book? How are you feeling about Epic Universe, looking 6 months out? I mean, how excited are you and how are you looking at?
I would say my hype meter is pretty high. There are a few things that I have concerns about, but it is really exciting to watch the first new theme park go up in this town since I got to watch the last one, Islands of Adventure, go up back when I was an employee there another lifetime ago. Yeah, there's a lot of energy. I recently attended an annual meeting of the Chamber of Commerce for International Drive, and they added Epic Universe to their Hall of Fame, which has people like Harris Rosen and Mayor Demings, and people who worked their lifetime to get a plaque on the wall at the convention center. They added Epic Universe to the wall 6 months before it's even open, which just tells you like the expectations, not just for theme park fans, but throughout the entire Orlando tourism industry, throughout the whole state, that Epic Universe is going to, just the same way that, Disney had a wave of expansion in the 80s and Universal had a burst of expansion in the late 90s, then this is going to be like the next thing to take Orlando to the next level in terms of tourism and money flowing in.
Well, yeah. Well, I am curious, though, because for me, I'm viewing this from someone in St. Louis who's looking at it like, wow, they're going to have this new park. And the excitement's kind of look. But you mentioned concerns. I am curious, just not to completely spin as negative, but I would be curious to know what hesitation you might have because, everyone's so excited. But, we saw with Islands of Adventure, it didn't, totally different era, different time frame. Everything was different, but that didn't hit as big as they thought. So I'm curious.
Well, I think creatively, Islands of Adventure was a success. Critically, the fans loved it. But you are right that in terms of attendance numbers, I got laid off from Universal not long after IOA opened because of the lack of success. A lot of that was marketing. There was a very confusing Universal Studios Escape branding that got dropped after a year or so. In a lot of ways, IOA kind of cannibalized the studios for a while until the studios started getting their original rides rebuilt. So one of my concerns is the delay of attendance we're seeing right now. They had a soft summer at Universal. Halloween is always huge, but we also had storms that impacted earnings, and a lot of that has been taken out in kind of budget cuts that you can see in the old parks. In terms of entertainment being cut back, and in terms of hours for attractions being cut back. And I do have a fear that if Epic is not as huge, it does not meet their numbers right from the get-go, or that if it cannibalizes the existing parks, then that could be a problem. I don't want to see a repeat of the rapid expansion and then shrinking of the workforce that they had, that I was part of back when IOA opened. Now, I do think that by tying ticket sales of the new park to buying a multi-day ticket for the old park is, a very cleverly evil plot to try to avoid the cannibalization. But eventually they're going to start selling, single-day tickets just to Epic to the general public at some point. And that's when we'll really see where the demand goes. Yeah,
it interests me because, I generally hear a lot, from theme park fans or in that circle. And of course, everyone's like, this is amazing. This is, oh my gosh, the new technologies and then Dark Universe and all these things. We're going to get into a lot of it. But I wonder, and I know they've had some really cool TV commercials, but I hope that they've been able to kind of cross over beyond the smaller, one, Orlando locals, and two, theme park fans, and are going to be able to draw, because Disney didn't have huge crowds this summer either. So I wonder, I'm hoping there's not some sort of travel dip that is going to hit Orlando entirely that they may have discounted. I agree, and I have some similar thoughts. I will say the one advantage that Universal has this time around that they didn't when IOA opened is they are part of the Comcast NBC Universal family. They have a lot more outlets to promote themselves, and I think that after the new year, you're definitely going to see. We saw this year with Wicked, when the Comcast megalith decides it wants to promote something and really put a push behind it, everyone on the planet will know about it. You could not avoid Wicked this Thanksgiving season, right? If they put the same effort into
promoting Epic Universe that they did into promoting Wicked. I don't think they'll have any problem with everyone knowing what Epic Universe is.
Yeah, and I think the most likely scenario is it'll do very well, but you never know. I'm just thinking about they have, the properties they have, like Nintendo did so big for Hollywood, at least from my impression, based on my experience going there. A lot of people were excited.
Yeah.
And then just, obviously Harry Potter, regardless of J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter is still very popular overall. And then, How to Train Your Dragon has a new movie. Yep. And then the Monsters Land looks awesome. So I'm curious for you. I want to talk about each land a bit.
Sure.
Let's start based on what are you most excited about, Seth?
There are things about each of the lands that excite me, but if you hold the gun to my head, I gotta say Dark Universe, because I'm a Monsters fan from childhood, and I've always dreamed about Universal having a year-round spooky park, or at least a land, and everything that I've seen about Dark Universe gets me really excited. The e-ticket ride, the C+ ticket coaster, and especially some of the entertainment and the atmosphere that it's going to have. I've got very high expectations for that area, and I'm hoping they're going to be met. And from watching all the aerial flyover photography that BioReconstruct does, it really looks like, at least from the outside, it's going to be the coolest place, especially after the sun sets, to run around and pretend you're in an old Universal monster movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I look at it because, at first when they announced just the IPs, I wasn't sure if this would be kind of a secondary land because I know Universal Monsters are huge, but it's not as the modern day kids aren't going back and watching the old Dracula or Mummy or whatever, but it looks so cool. I mean, Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment, to me, looks like the next evolution with the Kuka Arms of Forbidden Journey, like taking that to the next extreme. And crazily enough, it's been like 15 years almost.
It has. Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey was such a groundbreaking attraction when it opened. And I ride it, every couple weeks still. I still love it. But some of the things, especially the dome projections, which were so, high tech in their day, now look a little dated. And, the stuff that I still love about Forbidden Journey is all the physical props and the sets. And I love that Dark Universe, the Frankenstein experiment inside Dark Universe looks to be taking that to even a greater level, more animatronics, more physical sets. I think there will be some video used to kind of extend the sets or give a look out a window or something. But I think for the most part, it's going to be real things in your face. And I also love the fact that the ride vehicle, Forbidden Journey, you kind of have blinders on. The ride vehicle is designed to just give you kind of a narrow field of view. Whereas in this new attraction, it looks like the sides are more open and you're going to have more of a 180 degree, at least, look around you and with things coming in from all sides, which I think will make it, they claim it's going to be the scariest ride that they've ever made. And I'm hoping that they live up to that challenge.
Oh, yeah. And because Forbidden Journey, you get to a point now where you go when you're flying around with the screens, and I'm like, okay, let's just get through this part so we can go on, which is sad because it's such a cool attraction. It's not like you. I have not ridden it every few weeks, every year or two, various versions, but still, it's really cool. Now, you mentioned the coaster, the Curse of the Werewolf. I watched again, it's like the overhead testing and everything, but it reminds me a little bit. It's done by Mock Rides, I believe.
It is.
There's a spinning coaster they did, which is more extreme, called Time Traveler at Silver City, and it reminds me of like a family version of
it
that.
It's the kiddie, or maybe not the kiddie, but at least the junior, the tween version of Time Traveler, or I think Ride to Happiness. Yes. Which are known as some of the most extreme coasters. They are. I've not ridden them myself, but everyone who has said that you don't think a spinning coaster will be that extreme, and then you get on it and it's got G-forces that are really unique. And I think that maybe Universal's folks went over and rode those and all right, that's maybe a bit too much for the audience that we're going for. Because There is going to be one, or at least a pair of high-speed coasters in the center of the park at the Celestial Park, and the Stardust Racers. That is going to be the big thrill ride for the park, and even that I don't think is going to be as extreme as a Velocicoaster or even the Hulk. I think that they kind of recognize that they've got enough extreme rides at Iowa and with whatever replaces Rip Ride Rocket over at the studios, and they're going for more of a Magic Kingdom audience at this new park. There still are some thrills for the older kids, but I don't think that they wanted anything that would make people regularly puke on the exit path.
Yeah, and that's even like from what I've heard, I think Forbidden Journey might even be a little more motion sickness inducing than the Frankenstein experiment. Like they've learned some things from what people don't like.
Honestly, it's in a lot of ways, Epic Universe looks like they read online reviews of people who didn't like Universal because the rides make me sick, because there's too many motion simulators, because there's too much screens, because they don't like 3D glasses, and they made sure that they didn't have any of those things in the new park.
Hey, it could also line up nicely with the other parks where they still, I mean, the Velocicoaster still, but then they have other things here. But before we move on to another land, so I know another thing they're going to do at their local food establishment or drinking establishment, they're supposed to have these walk around characters that are like monster hunters that come in and talk. Will they stick around for the long term? That's my question.
So, I remember when Galaxy's Edge opened at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge over at Disneyland, and the promise was that, the streets were going to be filled with characters that you could interact with, and the decisions you made while flying the Millennium Falcon would have a meaningful impact, and it would all tie together, and all that stuff kind of either didn't actually happen or fell by the wayside pretty quickly. I am praying that does not happen at Universal. I've always thought that as good as the Wizarding Worlds, the current Wizarding Worlds are, that they needed more life. The people wandering around teaching you how to use the wands is fine, but they needed, characters, wizards having battles in the street. And we've been promised things like that for the new Wizarding World, and as mentioned, Dark Universe, things like hunters, musicians who wander around telling the tales of the monsters, things that are more than just your average meet and greet. And honestly, my number one fear with that is they will have an awfully hard time finding performers who are talented enough to do the things that they're being asked to do and willing to work for the salaries that they pay, especially being out in the heat, out in the crowds. It's they're asking an awful lot from these characters. And I hate to say it, but entertainment is always the first thing they add when they need a short-term fix to something, and it's always the first thing that they cut when they have to make a budget cut. I would say if those characters make it to opening day, get your experiences with them now while you can. That's my cynical side as someone who's watched so many years, so many great, especially at Universal, everything from the taxi cab driver to the Marx Brothers to the citizens of Port of Entry. Every time they have a character I fall in love with, they wind up getting shown the door eventually. So,
well, I hope that I kind of share that's kind of why I asked the question, but I hope that I'm wrong.
Yes, me too. I very much hope I'm wrong, because I have a lot of friends who are in entertainment, who are working on the project, who are really excited about the ideas, and I am excited for them to get to see them actually happen. And I hope that they are received as well as they hope, and that they stick around.
Yeah. So you mentioned Harry Potter. Well, let's talk about this was kind of one of the most recent news updates they gave, was showing inside their Ministry of Magic, the I forget the exact
Yeah.
name, but Harry Potter and the Battle of
Battle
the
Ministry. And I tell you, when they sent out those photographs, they dropped in my inbox in a press release. And I said, why are you sending these out again? These are the concept art that you shared earlier. And then I look carefully, it's like, wait, that's not the concept art. That's an actual photograph. Universal has gotten really good at Disney's concept art is always kind of aspirational and wispy and like it never quite matches up with the reality. Whereas Universal increasingly seems like they show you concept art and then that's what they build. And yeah, Ministry of Magic, just the queue alone. Gringotts was one of the first queues that I told people, even if you don't want to ride the ride, just wait in line to see the queue and to see the pre-shows. Ministry of Magic definitely looks like it's going to be that same type of situation.
Yeah, and I did the same thing with the pictures. I was like, wait, because you like the picture shows like the little like queue back and forth, stall, and then the background. I'm like, wait, no, that's there. That's actually the space.
Yes, and it's got this. I don't know if it's animated the ceiling that looks like storm clouds, and I'm really curious what kind of lighting or video system they're using to pull that off.
Yeah, so the attraction itself. The ride vehicle is interesting because it looks like, which I know it's not, it looks like something that would be in Tower of Terror. And I think it references in the book, but then it's not at all, right?
No. I mean, it kind of looks like Tower of Terror and the Scoop from Spider-Man had a baby.
Right.
The setup, the seating arrangement is kind of like Tower of Terror, in which you have wide rows and people sitting with just seatbelts, not a full pull-down lap bar. And you're all facing forward, surrounded by walls. So it's like you're in this ornate elevator straight out of the Ministry of Magic from the movies. But underneath, you're not going into a drop tower and actually dropping multiple stories. It's similar to the way that the Scoop vehicles can go up and down, but while the Scoop vehicles only go up and down, a matter of inches, this one I think was going to have a much wider range. Think similar to how in Avatar: Flight of Passage, you have the seat that you're on shifts around a lot, but also has moments that it can drop, half a story or so because the whole mechanism can drop. I think you're a similar sensation of that. So you mix, a few feet of drop with moving images, and it's really going to feel like you're in an elevator.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and they've, so far
and again, a lot of physical sets with set extensions that are digital screens, but no 3D glasses. A lot of animatronics, and we've seen patents for an animatronic system where they can project an actor such as Imelda Staunton, who plays. Oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the evil Dolores Umbridge. Thank you. Oh my gosh, who plays her? They patent some technology that would allow them to take a actor and project them onto an animatronic, and I'm really hoping that looks better than Anna and Elsa in Frozen Ever After.
Yes, or the Seven Dwarfs or something.
Yeah.
So that sounds awesome. Speaking of, I'm just having more sets. I mean, we saw this with Hagrid's, but now with going to the Isle of Berk with even the Hiccups Wing Gliders, which is a family launch coaster, is supposed to have several scenes with sets. And then, like we talked about earlier with Curse of the Werewolf, they're supposed to have animatronics. It's like everything's backwards, Seth. What's going on here?
Right. Back in the day, Universal, where you would go for the screens and the simulators, and Disney was where they had all the sets and the animatronic figures. And yeah, you're right. It seems like we're in upside down world at IAAPA, which is the big International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. Their big convention expo recently, I saw a booth where they had some sculptures from one of the vendors that works with Universal and Disney on animatronics, and saw what looked like the characters for How to Train Your Dragon. And they really do, they look great. They look adorable. I'm excited to see how much of it you actually get to see while you're on a roller coaster.
Right.
But the whole Isle of Berk, I'll be honest, I saw the first How to Train Your Dragon movie I don't really remember much of it, and I'm going to have to catch up with the rest of the franchise, obviously, before the park opens. The rides look fine, and they're perfect for I think the age group that they're aimed at, except for the big spinning thing that it basically puts you on the end of a big pole and then lets you flip upside down over and over again.
I've done that.
Yeah, it's an off the shelf ride.
I did it in Lost Island in Iowa.
Yeah, it's an off the shelf ride that they've rethemed, and I will have to do it once for journalistic purposes, but I don't see myself doing that one twice. The one thing I do think I'll be seeing again and again, though, is the Untrainable Dragon. I've seen video of the version of the show that they did in Beijing, and it was just this amazing mix of acrobatics and giant puppetry, flying effects, and the version they're doing here is not exactly the same, but I'm very excited to see that show. And I hope it's a people eater, because honestly, what these parks, what Epic Universe has a lot of is e-tickets and D-tickets, but what it needs is people eating shows. That you've got the Circus Arcana show, which is kind of a smaller scale indoor show with Fantastic Beasts over in the Harry Potter area. But the only real big arena style show is this Untrainable Dragon. The original plans had a Monsters arena show that got replaced by the Werewolf roller coaster. And I think especially in Florida, where it rains a lot, you can't overestimate the importance of a big covered indoor theater that can soak up, hundreds or 1,000 people at a time.
Well, yeah, because if they have their torrential summer no matter how well these work, some of these rides aren't going to be able to operate.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, we can't have 8 rides down, or I don't know which ones will operate. Some will be fine, I'm sure.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because we kind of analyze in the Unofficial Guide, what do you do on a rainy day at Universal? The Studios is a great place to go on a rainy day because virtually everything there is an indoor attraction. But at Islands of Adventure, right now, there's only 4 attractions that operate in a bad rainstorm. Spider-Man, King Kong, Cat in the Hat, and Forbidden Journey are the only 4 attractions that will run when it's raining really bad, or lightning at Universal, at Islands of Adventure. And Epic Universe, we have to wait and see what operations are like there, but there's basically only 1 attraction in each land that will keep operating in a bad storm, and that one, thoughts and prayers for the ops folks at that when that happens.
So you mentioned the live shows too, because Universal, just Waterworld, Born Stunktacular has done some really great live shows, and from what I've heard, the How to Train a Dragon show overseas
looks spectacular. Yep.
So, could we be, because we've been talking so much about Harry Potter ride and Dark Universe and everything, Frankenstein Experiment. Could these end up being 2 of the bigger hits, especially the How to Train a Dragon show, that maybe we aren't talking about as much as maybe we should?
Yeah, I absolutely think that is going to be one of the sleeper hits of the park. And, another sleeper hit, it's not quite entertainment. It's a form of, self-entertainment. Something that is not really being talked about in the press releases and stuff is all of the type of interactivity that is built into each of these lands. We know that we're going to have the power-up bands like we have in Hollywood and Japan for Super Nintendo World. As one of those people who used the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge data pad and at one point was the wealthiest man in Batu, because I just kept playing all the games until I finished all of them and then got really bored of them in 3 visits. Mm-hmm. I find that the games that link your band to your cell phone in Super Nintendo World have a lot more depth, a lot more replayability than anything at the Disney parks with their Disney Magic Bands. And so I'm really excited to see how many people are soaked up, in terms of staying out of the ride queues because they're so busy punching blocks and playing the games in Super Nintendo World. I know I saw a lot of that when I was there recently in Japan. Similar way, we're going to have upgraded versions of all the wands in the Wizarding World. And I think that there's going to be some level of interactivity, some kind of gamification with both the entertainment in Dark Universe and also in Isle of Berk. And I'm really excited to see more of what that is. I'm sure each of them will have some sort of thing that you have to invest in,
right.
Whether it's like maybe you have to buy a shoulder dragon that will talk to the other dragons, or I'm sure there will be merch associated for sure.
Yeah, because when we went to Hollywood, we bought 2 power bands for my kids. And then the problem is we were about 3 months after it opened. The land was so mobbed that after a while we were just like, okay, we're just gonna.
It's rough. Honestly, Hollywood, the number one thing you can do if you want to visit Super Nintendo in Hollywood, because everyone at Hollywood goes to Super Nintendo and nothing but Super Nintendo now. Yeah. The pay extra for early entry is a cash grab, but it's a totally necessary cash grab. Yeah, because that first half hour is like the only chance that you get to do the key challenges. So that you can go in and do Bowser Jr. without a long wait.
Well, speaking of Nintendo, part of this is, really this is more the Japan version, because you've got the Yoshi ride, which is not Hollywood, which you really could use, but then also Minecart Madness, which just finally is now operating in Japan. I watched the POV video recently. Seems to be fun. I don't know that seems like. A lot of people in Florida haven't been to Hollywood, but I'm curious what you think of how that's going to go, and maybe that ride. I don't know if you've watched POVs yet.
I didn't want to spoil myself, but I got to.
Yeah, I did too.
I think that is a ride that while I think it looked fine in the POV, I don't think that a POV is really going to do justice to the sensation, the illusion of flying off the tracks. I think it's going to be a huge hit. I think it's going to have ridiculously long, slow-moving lines. I thank the Lord that it has a single rider line, but because each vehicle only holds 4 people, we'll have to see how quickly that moves. Hopefully it will be similar to Forbidden Journey, because Forbidden Journey is 4-person vehicles, and their single rider line usually moves pretty efficiently. But I think that Super Nintendo is going to be a huge hit. There's been studies that say that, Mario is more recognizable worldwide than Mickey Mouse as a character. And I think it's going to be an enormous draw. It's going to be the land that gets hammered the hardest, at least for the opening years. And I think that especially, all of the lands are cul-de-sacs. They're all dead ends. They don't connect to each other in the classic hub and spoke fashion. But I think because Donkey Kong Country is behind a portal inside of Super Nintendo World, which is already behind a portal, I think they're going to have to get creative with crowd control. We might have to see some sort of virtual queue system just to allow you into that area. Because having just visited Japan, I expected that because the Super Nintendo World in Japan, which is very similar to what we're getting in Orlando, is larger and spread out over multiple levels versus the more compact version at Hollywood, that it would feel more roomy, and it didn't. It felt completely claustrophobic, and actually having multiple levels and having to walk up and down the stairs, I felt meant there was less room that you could just walk and sit around. And frankly, I'm kind of terrified what it's going to be like on a busy day when it comes to Orlando. That's one of the things. That's one of those things that worries me a little.
Yeah, my kids are both big Nintendo fans. We went. Now they're 15, 11. It was a year ago, and after a little while in there, they were just like, this is too much. Get me out of here. It's that's not a good sign.
Pretty overwhelming. Did you get to ride the Mario Kart?
Yes,
ride?
And actually that was the mistake we made, not to go too far off on this, but we had the early entry, but it was it said it was we had an hour early, but then it said it was 30 minutes. And I'm like, great, let's knock this out. Then we'll still have time. And then the ride broke down a bunch. We did do it though. We did it.
Okay.
And I thought it was interesting.
It's not the most reliable attraction. I think that if, this was Mario Kart was a ride that was designed way before COVID. It was supposed to open at Super Nintendo World in Japan was supposed to open significantly before it did. So it's using technology now that is, over a decade old. And if you look at what, you can have with mixed reality on an Oculus Quest 3S that you can buy for $300 in your Best Buy, I think that if they were to redesign the AR headset from scratch right now with a better field of view, a better stability. I've had too many rides on that where it was out of sync or out of alignment. And that doesn't make a great guest experience. So I'm hopeful that maybe the hardware that's going into the Orlando version has been upgraded or made a little more bulletproof.
Yeah, I really liked the sets. There were some really cool moments, like the Rainbow Road and a few others, where I was like, "This is really cool to look at."
Yeah, when it works, it works.
The gameplay
but it takes a few laps to get a hold of a handle on like using your head to aim, and trying to track the targets. It's it takes some work to appreciate the gameplay.
And the queue was cool too. I really like the queue. They did a good job.
Yeah, the queue is fantastic, and even the Yoshi queue that they have in Japan, which we're getting here, is also really adorable. So both excellent queues that you'll be spending a lot of time.
Yes, we spent a lot of time in that queue. I got to tell you, the one room with the bombs we stood in without moving for like 20 minutes, and that's a bit much. Okay, well, I want to ask you about Celestial Park because you already mentioned Stardust Racers. I mean, the fact that you have, I wouldn't really call it Main Street, but you have kind of like your hub middle entrance with a dueling roller coaster and also this whole land, including the carousel and everything. No existing IP, Seth. How is this possible?
I know it's kind of hearkening a little bit back to Port of Entry at Islands of Adventure, where there's such a rich backstory of that land that most people have no idea about because it's all hidden little details of signs and audio clips that you can hear coming out of the windows. And I'm hoping that similar level of atmosphere and detailing comes through in Celestial Park. It's got, they're not starting totally from scratch. It's definitely got a lot of influence from classical mythology and astrology, especially in the carousel. But it's kind of a fun backstory if you read up on that they have for this land and the people who live there, and they like to race comets for fun. Which is a great excuse to not light up the track for the roller coasters that are in that area. I've been watching some testing video of it, and the trains are all lit up at night, but the track is completely dark, and it really does look like these shooting stars just flying through the air over the park.
That's really cool. It reminds me of like old school, the Space Mountain when they used to light up the cars and you could see them kind of going through, but this is like going twice as fast or something.
Yeah. This is, I don't think it's going to be so intense that people are scared off of it. I don't think it's going to be quite as extreme as, there's no elements that look as extreme as the Mosasaurus roll on Velocicoaster. Right. But I think it would be great to have that dueling thrill that we lost when Dueling Dragons stopped dueling. To have those kind of near-miss intertwining moments again on a Universal roller coaster is going to be a lot of fun.
And hopefully they don't do what some parks like to do with racing or dueling coasters and only open one side, because that always gets me.
That would be a crying shame to go through all the effort to design it and then not dispatch the way it's designed for.
I don't think that'll be the case.
It's a Universal. It's not Six Flags. Come on.
Right, or Kings Island or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, before I do want to ask one more question about the book, because you're writing this book, 2025. You got to do all this chapter of Epic Universe. You have this info. Is it tricky, or is it at all where you can't a lot of what's in the book is like, how good is this? How does this work? And none of that can be. So you're writing about something you've never experienced. Is that tricky?
It is extremely tricky. And to be perfectly honest, that is why this book is no longer written just by me. It is written by me and Alicia Stella. That if you don't know her name already, she is the source of most of the rumors, leaks, and deep dives into permits and construction drawings that have given us all the information we had about Epic Universe before Universal put it out there. She is the number one source who does not have an NDA with Universal. And, I realized very quickly when I knew I had to have a deadline for having this book written that was well before any official information was going to be released. The only person that I could turn to was her. And it was either I could just cheat off of her homework by reading her website or invite her to join the team. And I was very, very happy. She helped us out with the 2024 edition, giving us some little tidbits, and I'm very honored that she came aboard as my co-writer for this. So, the Epic Universe material we worked on together, but I give her full credit for all the research, putting together all of the information. We deliberately did not include any star ratings like we do for our other attractions. I can't rate something that I haven't been on yet. But it's amazing, between concept art and blueprints and reading permits. It's amazing how much you can learn about an attraction before it's even built. So we've been very happy that there's been a lot of official drops of information, press releases, official podcasts, videos. And every time a new one comes out, we watch it and we're like, did we get it right? Did we get it right? And we have yet, other than maybe like one or two very tiny minor details, we've yet to find anything that was contradicted by what we've got in the book so far. So fingers crossed that stays true through opening.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had to actually pull myself back a little bit because I felt like I was learning too much because Alicia has such great info.
Spoilers.
But when we didn't know anything, it was awesome to learn the first, they're going to really do this Monsters Land, or, they're going to do this. Some of the really early elements were so cool to learn, but yeah, she knows so much, and it's great that, it seems like a perfect fit to have her working with you on this book.
Yeah, everything. She's a great addition to the team, and we're really, really happy that she came aboard.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask you before we finish. I'm going to lead into this because I know you mentioned before we started that you had done the holiday tour at Universal. So I've been tracking wait times because I'm going to go next month for a trip. And granted, this doesn't impact me, but the wait times for the Grinch. Are people really waiting 3 to 4 hours every day for the Grinch, Seth?
I think when you see 4, that is them saying, please don't get in line at all. Okay. But 2 hours, often. In years past, I used to say that the best way to avoid that is to buy the holiday breakfast. That sold out really, really quick this year. And opening day of it was frankly a disaster, according to social media. It's gotten a lot better, but even with the breakfast, you can still wait 15 to 30 minutes with the breakfast. And yes, if you are there this time of year and you've already ridden Velocicoaster in the past, then you should be using your early entry time to just get right in line for the Grinch. That's probably the most efficient choice. If you are not willing to pony up for a VIP holiday tour, and I will tell you, I'm a little bit of a Grinch, or at least a Scrooge, in that I don't like spending any money that I don't have to. I've already got an annual pass. I pay enough for that every year. Why should I need to pay extra for a holiday tour? Well, they invited me to take one this year, and I gotta say, it's worth the $99. You do get to meet the Grinch with little to no wait, and you get to meet him in a different location. You don't go and meet him inside Islands of Adventure. Instead, you meet him in the theater at the Grinchmas show after one of the performances. You get a reserve viewing for the last performance of the day, and that alone, if Grinch was your number one objective, then spending that money for that versus waiting 2 hours plus in a line, I consider that a win. But what makes that holiday tour really worth the money is it's the only way you can get to meet Santa. He hangs out in the VIP lounge at Jimmy Fallon. Don't ask me why, but he does. Santa was great. Santa was great. But, I can meet Santa other places. The one thing that you can only do, only place in the world, on the VIP holiday tour, you can meet Max the dog, who is the dog that performs in the Grinchmas show.
Right.
And he is a very, very, very good boy. He was just one of the sweetest animal actors that I've met, and getting to touch him, getting to take pictures with him, I think for a lot of people, like that alone, worth the cost of the VIP tour.
Wow. Well, no, I watched like a vlog that someone did because I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, that's so interesting. And then I was like, I wonder what that cost. And I've been trained to think that it would even be like more than $99 because everything seems to be more.
And you also get a couple buffets, where they have a buffet in La Bamba and another buffet in the Grinchmas Theater with savory stuff and holiday treats and hot chocolate. You get a tour of the tribute store. You do not get to see the holiday parade because the holiday parade actually starts at the same time that the check-in for the tour is. So if you want to see the holiday parade, you're going to have to schedule that for a different day. But you do, at the end of the night after Islands of Adventure closes, they take you over to Hogsmeade and you get a private showing after hours of the nighttime lights. I thought at first that it was just going to be like a roped off area with the crowds there, but the fact that you get to be in the park, if you've never been in a theme park after hours, after everyone else has left, and just the opportunity to like slowly walk out of the park when it's empty, that for some people is going to be worth the price of admission.
Well, very cool. Well, before we finish, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Oh, gosh.
Are you good for this?
I'm terrible at these. Go for it. Please.
Well, you don't have to give me one word. We'll just,
I always stumble and I have brain freeze. Okay, I'll try it.
How many we do depends on how long it takes for each one.
All right.
But okay.
Start the countdown. I feel like I'm wait, don't tell me.
Okay, so first question about Epic Universe. Which attraction is going to be a mechanical nightmare that constantly breaks down?
Oh, probably Battle for the Ministry.
Yeah. So which attraction are you most excited about at Epic Universe? Number one, not land, attraction.
I want to ride Donkey Kong minecart. I planned my trip to Japan thinking that it was going to be open by early September. Stupid me. So now I want to finally ride it.
Okay, is Universal ever going to add Hagrid's to their Universal Express lineup, hopefully by early January? Will this happen?
By early January, no.
Do you think they will at some point, though?
I think that not until after Epic Universe opens.
Cool. Okay, we're going to talk about Disney real quick. Which of their D23 Expo announcements are you most excited for?
Most angry and upset about, you mean?
No, excited. But we're gonna get to that. Most excited about something new that's coming to a park. Positive, Seth.
I will say the Monsters coaster because I've always wanted that to be built, just not where it's going.
Right. So next question. Have you purchased a pitchfork yet for the
Fortune one hand?
And I wrote this beforehand, but for the losses of Muppet Vision and or the Rivers of America.
Muppet Vision, Muppets are very, very dear to me. I've worked with the Henson family, and I'm trying to meet up with one of Jim's daughters for a last visit to Muppet Vision because it hasn't dated. I'm sorry,
no,
it is still just as funny. There's no like pop culture references that don't make sense anymore. It's still the comic timing, the effects, everything about it is still beautiful. And the only hope I have is that they will do a really good spatial video recording and release it on MetaQuest and other VR platforms. That's the only way I can see of really preserving the feeling of being in the theater. Because just releasing the film on Disney Plus or whatever is not the same.
Well, no, that's already on YouTube that way, really.
Yeah, you can. Yes, I have that. It's not the same. At Rivers of America, I am sad about that. I would get the pitchforks out if they were getting rid of the Disneyland Rivers of America.
Right.
But at Disney World, there's so few quiet places to escape on a busy day at the Magic Kingdom. And taking away, that walkway around the rivers of America and the riverboat and the rafts to Tom Sawyer Island, that was things that you could always do even when the park was packed. And I don't know. I'm sure they've done the math of how many people actually use those attractions every day. But if the new Cars Land ride is going to have roughly the same hourly capacity as Radiator Springs Racers, because it's a similar hardware system, I don't see how that's going to have the same hourly capacity of all the things that we're losing.
Yeah, and you make a great point, because for me, the riverboat is the bigger loss for me personally, even than Tom Sawyer Island, which is cool. I mean, but I don't have young kids anymore, and we don't go there much. But the riverboat, at me getting older, I'm like, so nice. But part of the reason it's nice, even compared to Disneyland, where I think the two boats are more popular, not a lot of people ride it. I know I'm making Disney's argument, but not that many people ride it. But that's why it's great, because you get away from people. Okay, sorry, you were going to say something else.
No, I'm good.
One more question. Which of these additions from Disney in 2025 interest you the most? Test Track 3.0, a new nighttime parade at the Magic Kingdom, or the possibly creepy animatronic Walt Disney?
Oh, that's almost a three-way tie right there. Having seen the Tokyo Electric Parade, the Dreamlights Parade, I am praying that Magic Kingdom gets something on that level, because, I mean, since we lost Spectro Magic, honestly, we haven't had a really good nighttime parade in Florida. We need it. But mostly we need it so that the guests can all go out and watch the parade and I can go ride rides.
Oh, exactly.
Test Track, hopefully third time is the charm. I have sort of a weird nostalgia for the janky 90s version of Test Track, like the Crash Test Dummy version of Test Track. I'm tired of Tron Track. I'm ready for it to be gone. But it's still, no matter what they do, it's lipstick on a pig. It's still the exact same ride path, same scenes. So we'll have to see what happens there. Walt is a really tricky one, because on the one hand, I'm excited to see the technology. On the other hand, I think it's a lot creepy. So
yeah.
I'm not genetically related to him, and I find it a little bit creepy. But then I think about the fact that Walt came up with the idea of the Hall of Presidents for Disney World before he passed away, and at the time, like, JFK had only been dead for a year or two, and he was all on board with making an animatronic JFK. So I guess if Walt didn't find that to be offensive, then I guess we can't be offended by an animatronic Walt, can we? I don't know.
I mean, I just keep forgetting that's happening too, because it's like, and then it's so soon, because so many of the announcements, it's like, that'll be here in 2030. And this one's like, no, it's this year. Or this year, meaning 2025.
Well, it does look like they are doing a little more for the 70th anniversary at Disneyland than we got for the 50th anniversary at Disney World a few years back. So, yeah. Yeah, I will walk into that theater with an open mind, but I'm also very glad that they installed a turntable so they can flip Walt around and bring Abe Lincoln back in it.
Oh, yeah. That was a nice surprise. Okay. Yeah. Well, Seth, this has been really awesome.
This is fantastic. Thanks for all you do, and I am honored that you asked me to be part of your grand finales of shows. Of
course. Here. You were on episode 5, and then, I think I forget the exact numbers of that, but then there was a good break in the middle, and then last year, so it's fun to have you back once again.
And if you ever decide to create a new podcast or resurrect this one, you have to have me as one of your first guests.
Oh, for sure. No, thank you for being so generous with your time on the show. And it's always a blast to talk about. I feel like every time we talk, it's like there were so many other things we could have talked about. And I mean that in a good way. So thank you so much, Seth. And I hope
my pleasure.
The book is great. So also I want to say, too, if listeners would like to connect with you, or get a copy of the book, where should they go?
So you can pick up a copy of the book at a fine bookstore near you, assuming you still have bookstores near you, or more conveniently, head straight to theunofficialguides.com. You can find me on all social media platforms at S. Kubersky, and you can also find me at The Unofficial Guides.
Awesome. Well, Seth, thanks once again. This has been great. Really excited about Epic Universe, and then I can see how you rate everything after it comes out.
Well, even if you don't have a podcast, when you come down and check it out, you have to drop me a line and let me know what you think.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
All right. My pleasure.
Well, that was awesome as always. I feel like I've been talking a lot about Epic Universe lately, but I think with it being about, 6 months away, it makes sense that that is one of the main topics. And we are nearly complete with the Tomorrow Society podcast. I'm sure you know by now, but there are only 2 episodes left after this one. And here's how I'm thinking it's going to go. Episode 250 is going to be the big finale. I've already gotten some really great questions and topics to cover from you, the listeners, and there is still time. So email me, dan@tomorrowsociety.com, if there's any questions or topics you'd like me to cover. It can be about the podcast. It can be my thoughts on things in theme parks. It can be stuff that's entirely unrelated to theme parks or the podcast. I will do my best to talk through it. So submit those in the next few weeks and you are good. This is going to be the last new episode of this year. The final 2 episodes will come out in January. My plan is that episode 249 will be a trip report it's probably not that hard to figure out what it's going to be about, but it is a resort and parks that I have never covered as far as a trip report on this show. So I think it's going to be super cool. And so that is the plan for the final 2 episodes. Always love to hear what you think of these shows. It was great to get a chance to talk to Seth one more time. Pick up a copy of the Unofficial Guide to Universal Orlando 2025. He's also involved with the Unofficial Guide to Disneyland. We talked about that in the past, and works on the Attractions podcast with Attractions Magazine and their YouTube channel. A lot going on for Seth that you should definitely check out. Before we finish, I also want to give a big thanks to 2 different listeners, both named Michael S. I will say is their last initial, that bought me a Dole Whip in the past few days. Thank you, guys. This is awesome. And they went to tomorrowsociety.com/Dole Whip and made a contribution to the show, which always makes me feel good about, as we're starting to wind down this train, it's always nice to hear that you guys are out there still listening, still enjoying it, and appreciating the Tomorrow Society podcast. I think that is it for now. You can always follow me on social media at the Dan Heaton. I'm not really out there on Twitter anymore. Blue Sky is probably the best spot. Also, on Instagram, though not much going on there either. So I would say go to Blue Sky, and you can also, of course, follow the page for the Tomorrow Society on Facebook. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you're all doing awesome. The music you're hearing right now was written by Adam Hookie and performed by the Sophisticated Babies. We'll be back early next year with the final 2 episodes of the Tomorrow Society podcast. Don't forget to submit your questions and topics for the final episode. Really looking forward to it. Hope you all have an amazing holidays, whatever you celebrate, and a happy new year. And I will talk to you again in early 2025. Thanks a lot and take care.